The final transformation began when Captain Jake Morrison made the choice that would define the fate of the galaxy. Standing on the bridge of the UES Discovery as reality itself warped around them, from the approaching Void Harbinger fleet, he looked at his crew and saw not just humans but the potential for something far greater. "Activate the final protocols," he ordered Dr. Lisa Carter, knowing that none of them would be quite the same afterward. The change was immediate and overwhelming. Jake felt his consciousness expand beyond the boundaries of his individual mind, connecting him directly to every guardian across the galaxy. He could perceive reality on levels that had no names, seeing the quantum threads that held existence together, and understanding how to weave them stronger. Dr. Carter became something more than human, as the full Guardian network integrated with her consciousness. She existed simultaneously in normal space and in dimensions where thought became action, and will became physical law. Through her, the scattered Guardian forces across the galaxy coordinated with perfect efficiency. "The Harbingers are not evil," she announced, to the combined fleet as her expanded awareness touched the consciousness of the approaching entities. "They are broken, cut off from the normal flow of reality so long ago that they forgot what existence was supposed to feel like. They consume because they have forgotten how to create." Danny Rodriguez found that his connection to technology had evolved into something approaching magic. The Discovery's systems responded to his intentions before he was even fully aware of having them. He could reshape matter at the molecular level and channel energy across impossible distances. The battle for reality itself began in the space between galaxies, where the main Harbinger fleet had gathered for its final assault. Captain Morrison led a task force of transformed Guardians directly into the heart of the enemy formation, their ships existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "We are not here to destroy them," Jake transmitted to all Guardian forces as they engaged the Harbingers in combat that transcended normal physics. "We are here to heal them, to remind them what they have forgotten." The fighting was unlike anything that had ever occurred in the known universe. Guardian ships phased through attacks that would have erased them from existence, while Harbinger entities found their reality-warping abilities countered by humans who could reinforce the basic laws of physics through pure will. Commander Alex Carter led fighter squadrons that moved through spaces that existed only in theoretical mathematics, striking at Harbinger weak points that could only be perceived by consciousness expanded beyond normal human limits. Her pilots had become living weapons, beings whose very existence stabilized reality around them. "We are pushing them back," she reported as her fighters carved paths through enemy formations. "But they are not retreating, they are remembering. Each one we touch with our expanded consciousness is starting to reconnect with normal reality." General Carl Bennett's ground forces found themselves fighting a different kind of battle entirely. Instead of destroying Harbinger manifestations on contested worlds, they were working to restore the entity's connection to the fundamental forces that governed existence. "It is not a war anymore," he reported to the Joint Command Structure. "It is a massive healing operation. We are not defeating the Harbingers. We are curing them of whatever caused them to become detached from reality in the first place." Dr. Kevin Brooks, his consciousness now expanded to encompass millions of years of Guardian knowledge, discovered the truth about the original conflict. The Void Harbingers had once been a species much like humans, reality engineers who had attempted to transcend the normal limits of existence and had become lost in the spaces between dimensions. "They are us," he announced to the Emergency Council. Or rather, they are what we could have become if we had not learned to balance power with wisdom. The ancient war was not between different species, but between different choices about how to use reality-shaping abilities. The revelation changed everything about the nature of the conflict. Instead of trying to destroy the Harbingers, Guardian forces began working to reintegrate them with normal space-time, using their own expanded consciousness as bridges back to conventional reality. Captain Steve Murphy's ship, the UES Defender, had become a nexus of healing energy, projecting fields that helped Harbinger entities remember what it felt like to exist within the normal laws of physics. "They are not fighting us anymore," he reported. "They are working with us to undo the damage they caused while they were disconnected from reality." The transformation was spreading throughout the Harbinger fleet as more entities reconnected with normal existence. Instead of consuming space and time, they began working to repair the areas where reality had been damaged by their previous passage. Dr. Michelle Davis, now existing as much as living equations as physical matter, coordinated the restoration of entire star systems that had been erased from existence. "We can bring back what was lost," she announced. "The Harbingers remember how they unmade these places, and now they can help us remake them." Chief Engineer Laura Thompson worked with reformed Harbinger entities to restore the fundamental forces that had been disrupted during the invasion. Her consciousness had expanded to encompass understanding of how reality was constructed at its most basic level. The climax came when Captain Morrison and Dr. Carter led a joint human Harbinger team into the deepest layers of space-time itself, the foundational dimensions where the basic laws of physics were written. Here they found the source of the original damage that had disconnected the Harbingers from normal reality. It was an experiment, Lisa explained as her consciousness touched the ancient records embedded in the quantum structure of space itself. A civilization that tried to rewrite the fundamental laws of existence to achieve immortality. They succeeded in transcending normal reality, but lost their connection to everything else in the process. Working together, humans and reformed Harbingers began repairing the damage at the foundational level of reality. It was delicate work that required perfect coordination between beings who existed partially outside normal space-time and those who served as anchors to conventional physics. Commander Rita Palmer led the integration efforts between Guardian forces and the alien civilizations who had supported them throughout the crisis. "The galaxy will never be the same," she reported, "but it will be stronger, protected by beings who understand both the power and the responsibility that comes with reality engineering." The war ended not with victory or defeat, but with healing and transformation. The Void Harbingers reconnected to normal existence became partners in protecting and nurturing reality, rather than consuming it. They retained their ability to exist between dimensions but used it to strengthen the foundations of space-time, rather than weaken them. Dr. Nathan Webb, working with reformed Harbinger scientists, began establishing academies where beings from across the galaxy could learn to understand and protect the fundamental forces that governed existence. "We have guardians now," he announced. "Not just humans, but a coalition of species dedicated to ensuring that reality remains stable and nurturing for all forms of life." The UES Discovery, transformed beyond recognition but still commanded by Captain Morrison, became the flagship of a new kind of exploration fleet. Instead of just discovering new worlds, they worked to ensure that the galaxy remained a place where life and consciousness could flourish. "We have learned that power without wisdom leads to isolation and destruction," Jake announced to the gathered representatives of every major galactic civilization. "But wisdom combined with power can heal even the deepest wounds and create something better than what existed before." As the crisis ended, humanity found itself changed forever. They had retained their essential nature, but gained abilities and understanding that made them natural protectors of cosmic stability. More importantly, they had learned that the greatest victory came not from defeating enemies but from healing the underlying causes of conflict. Sam Rodriguez, now commanding exploration missions that spanned multiple dimensions simultaneously, reported discoveries of other galaxies where similar guardians were needed. "The universe is vast and full of wonders," he transmitted back to Galactic Command. "And now we have the wisdom and power to ensure that those wonders remain safe." The story concluded with the transformation of the galaxy into something unprecedented, a cosmic community where beings from countless species work together to protect and nurture reality itself. The Void Harbingers, once the greatest threat to existence, had become its most dedicated protectors, their unique understanding of reality's vulnerabilities making them invaluable guardians. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Discovery as it sailed toward distant galaxies. His crew, a mixture of humans, aliens, and reformed Harbingers, united in their commitment to protecting existence itself. The ship had become more energy than matter, sailing through dimensions that normal physics said should not exist. The galaxy thought it was alone, he reflected as they approached the edge of known space. But it was never alone, and now it never will be. We are the guardians, the protectors of everything that is and everything that could be. Behind them, the galaxy continued its ancient dance through space. But now the memories came in waves now, flooding through every human mind across the galaxy like a tide that could not be stopped. Captain Jake Morrison found himself reliving battles that had happened millions of years before his birth, commanding ships that moved like living things through dimensions that normal physics said should not exist. Dr. Lisa Carter had become something more than human. Her consciousness expanded to interface directly with the ancient Guardian systems. She could feel every activated crystal site across the galaxy, each one adding its voice to a growing chorus of awakened knowledge. The technology was not just responding to humans now, it was merging with them. "The memories are getting clearer," Lisa reported from the crystal chamber, her voice carrying strange harmonics that made everyone who heard it feel both comforted and afraid. "I can see what we were before, Jake. Humans were created by beings called the Makers to serve as guardians against something that threatens all existence." Danny Rodriguez had stopped pretending that his newfound abilities were natural. His hands moved through the Discovery's control systems like he was conducting an orchestra, making modifications that should have taken weeks of planning and months of installation. The ship itself was changing, its hull growing stronger and its engines more efficient as dormant systems activated. "Captain, the ship is not just running better," Danny explained. "It is becoming something else entirely. The Guardian technology was hidden in our own designs all along, waiting for us to remember how to use it." On Earth, the political situation was growing more complex by the day. Senator Patricia Goldman led emergency sessions as world leaders struggled to understand what humanity was becoming. Reports flooded in from every colony and outpost. Humans were developing abilities that seemed like magic. Technology was evolving beyond current understanding, and ancient installations were appearing on worlds that had been thoroughly surveyed. General Carl Bennett commanded the hastily organized Guardian Protocol Division, trying to coordinate military responses to threats that no one fully understood yet. His forces were discovering that human soldiers could now interface directly with weapon systems, pilot spacecraft with thought alone, and survive in environments that should have killed them instantly. "We are not the same species we were 6 months ago," the general reported to the Emergency Council. "Our people are becoming something that was always intended but somehow forgotten. The question is whether we can control this transformation or if it will control us." The alien civilizations were struggling to adapt to humanity's rapid changes. The Zentari Empire, led by commanders like Tony Martinez who had studied human behavior for years, found their assumptions about galactic power structures crumbling. Humans who had seemed primitive and harmless were now displaying technologies that the Zentari could not understand or duplicate. Ambassador Helen Price attended emergency sessions of the Galactic Council where representatives from dozens of species debated how to respond to the human transformation. Some wanted to quarantine human space until the changes stabilized. Others proposed immediate military action to prevent humans from becoming a threat to galactic stability. "They are not the same beings we first encountered," declared the Coran Federation representative. "Their ships are becoming weapons platforms beyond our ability to match, and their people show capabilities that violate known laws of physics. We must act before they become unstoppable." But the Vex Collective, through researchers like Dr. Ryan Clark, argued for cooperation instead of confrontation. Their analysis of the Guardian awakening suggested that humans were not becoming conquerors, but protectors, activated by some threat that other species could not yet perceive. Commander Steve Murphy, captain of the UES Defender, was experiencing this transformation firsthand. His ship had been a standard exploration vessel when the awakening began, but now it moved through space like it was alive. The hull had developed what could only be described as senses, able to detect approaching dangers across impossible distances. Chief Engineer Laura Thompson worked alongside systems that no longer needed her guidance, but seemed to welcome her input. "The ship knows things now," she explained to Captain Murphy. "It understands threats and opportunities that our sensors cannot detect. I think it is preparing for something big." Dr. Carter, still interfaced with the crystal technology aboard the Discovery, began receiving transmissions from Guardian installations across the galaxy. Each site was awakening humans to different aspects of their ancient purpose. Some focused on technology and engineering, others on strategy and tactics, and still others on abilities that seemed to bend the fundamental forces of the universe. "We were not just soldiers," Lisa explained during a briefing that was broadcast to human leadership across the galaxy. "We were reality engineers, beings capable of reinforcing the basic laws of physics against forces that would unravel them." The makers created us to protect not just life but existence itself. The scope of this revelation was staggering. Dr. Kevin Brooks, working with historical data and newly recovered memories, pieced together a picture of the ancient conflict that had required such drastic measures. The enemy that humanity had been created to fight existed partially outside normal spacetime, consuming not just matter and energy, but the fundamental structures that allowed reality to function. They are called the Void Harbingers, Kevin reported to the Emergency Council. According to the memories, they are not truly alive in any sense we understand, but they are intelligent and relentless. They consume galaxies by unweaving the forces that hold atoms together, leaving nothing but empty space where entire civilizations once existed. Nathan Webb, a former VEX researcher who had joined the Human Guardian Project, confirmed that long-range sensors were detecting exactly the kind of reality distortions that the ancient memories described. Whatever is approaching the galaxy is leaving zones of altered physics in its wake, he reported. Space itself is becoming unstable in areas where these entities have passed. Captain Morrison found himself coordinating with ships and crews across human space as the Guardian network fully activated. The UES Valiant, commanded by Captain Greg Anderson, had become something that was part starship and part living entity. Its crew of humans and allied aliens worked together with an efficiency that surprised everyone involved. Colonel Diane Foster led ground forces that could now move faster than light without spacecraft, drawing energy directly from stellar cores and manipulating matter at the quantum level. Her soldiers were not just enhanced humans anymore, but something entirely new. Guardians awakened to their cosmic purpose. Commander Rita Palmer, a former Zentari officer who had chosen to work with the human Guardians, served as a liaison between the awakening human forces and alien governments that were still trying to understand what was happening. Your people are not becoming conquerors, she assured nervous alien delegates. They are becoming something that protects and preserves rather than dominates. But not all alien civilizations were convinced. The Quran Federation began mobilizing their fleets, viewing the human transformation as an existential threat to their own power. Some Zentari factions argued for preemptive strikes against human space before the Guardians became too powerful to stop. These tensions came to a head when long-range sensors detected the first clear images of what was approaching the galaxy. The Void Harbingers were not ships or beings in any conventional sense, but massive distortions in space-time itself, areas where the normal laws of physics had been completely rewritten. They are not traveling through space, reported Dr. Michelle Davis from her analysis of the sensor data. They are consuming space as they move, leaving nothing behind. At their current rate of approach, they will reach the outer spiral arms in less than 4 months. The realization that the galaxy faced an enemy that could literally erase reality itself finally convinced most alien governments to support the human Guardian awakening. The Galactic Council voted to provide full cooperation with human defensive efforts. Though some species chose to attempt evacuation to other galaxies, instead, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the transformed Discovery and felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on his shoulders. Around him, his crew worked with systems that responded to their thoughts and intentions rather than manual controls. The ship itself had become a weapon capable of fighting enemies that existed partially outside normal space. "Are we ready for this?" he asked Dr. Carter, who was now more interface than individual human being. "We were born ready," she replied, her voice carrying the combined knowledge of millions of years of Guardian memories. "We just forgot for a while. But now we remember, and the galaxy will learn that it was never truly alone in the dark. As human space transformed into something that could defend against threats from beyond reality itself, the approaching Void Harbingers accelerated their advance, drawn by the same energy signatures that had awakened humanity's guardian nature. The first Void Harbinger scouts reached the galaxy's outer rim 3 weeks ahead of schedule, and reality itself began to unravel in their wake. Captain Jake Morrison watched the sensor readings with growing horror as entire star systems simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but erased from the fundamental structure of space-time. "They are not just killing the stars," reported Dr. Lisa Carter from her position interfaced with the Guardian network. "They are making it so the stars never existed at all. The physics that allowed them to form is being rewritten on a cosmic scale." The UES Discovery had evolved far beyond its original design, becoming something that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that human science had never imagined. Jake found that he could command the ship through direct mental interface, feeling its movement through hyperspace like extensions of his own body. Danny Rodriguez was no longer just an engineer but a reality technician, maintaining systems that operated on principles that should have been impossible. "Captain, the ship is stable, but we are seeing increasing distortions as we get closer to the affected areas," he reported. "Whatever these things are, they change the rules of how everything works." The Galactic Council had moved its emergency headquarters to the human colony at Nexus Station, a critical junction point between galactic sectors. Species that had been rivals for centuries now worked together in desperate cooperation, knowing that their ancient disputes meant nothing against an enemy that could erase their entire existence. Commander Alex Carter led a squadron of Guardian pilots whose ships moved through space like living creatures. Her fighters could phase in and out of normal reality, striking at enemy scouts from dimensions that the Void Harbingers could not perceive or defend against. "We are engaging scout formations near the Outer Rim colonies," Alex reported during a combat briefing that reached every Guardian unit in the galaxy. "These things do not fight like anything we have faced before. They do not try to destroy our ships. They try to make our ships impossible." The nature of the enemy was becoming clearer as more encounters occurred. The Void Harbingers existed as conscious distortions in the fabric of reality, beings that had somehow learned to manipulate the fundamental forces that held the universe together. They spread through space like a cosmic infection, rewriting the laws of physics to make their own existence more stable, while making everything else impossible. General Carl Bennett coordinated ground defenses on worlds throughout the galaxy, but traditional military thinking was useless against an enemy that could alter the nature of matter itself. His forces had evolved into something beyond conventional soldiers, warriors who could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously and draw power directly from the quantum vacuum. "Standard weapons are completely ineffective," he reported to the Joint Command Structure. "Our people can hurt these things, but only by using abilities that we are still learning to control. Every engagement is teaching us more about what we can do." Dr. Kevin Brooks had become the keeper of Guardian knowledge, helping newly awakened humans understand abilities that had been dormant for millions of years. His research showed that the current Void Harbinger incursion was larger and more organized than any previous attack, recorded in the ancient memories. "They have grown stronger during their time in the void," he explained to the Emergency Council. "The last time they attacked, our ancestors barely managed to drive them back. This time they seem to have learned from that defeat and adapted their approach." The UES Valiant, under Captain Greg Anderson, served as the flagship for the combined Guardian fleet. The ship had become a nexus of Guardian consciousness, allowing commanders across the galaxy to coordinate their efforts through quantum entanglement links that operated faster than light. "We are not just fighting an invasion," Captain Anderson explained during a strategy session. "We are fighting an attempt to rewrite the basic laws that allow anything to exist. If they succeed, there will not be a galaxy left to save." Commander Rita Palmer worked with alien forces that were struggling to adapt to combat conditions that changed from moment to moment. The Zentari Empire's advanced warships found their weapons useless against enemies that could make their energy beams cease to exist mid-flight. "Your Guardian abilities are the only thing that can touch these entities," she reported to the mixed human-alien task force under her command. "We need to integrate our conventional forces with Guardian units if we want to have any chance of stopping them." The Vex Collective had provided crucial scientific support, but even their advanced understanding of physics was challenged by enemies that could rewrite natural laws at will. Dr. Nathan Webb led a joint research team studying captured Harbinger scouts, trying to understand how to fight beings that existed partially outside normal spacetime. "They are not violating the laws of physics," Nathan explained. "They are changing those laws to suit their purposes. Fighting them requires us to become better at reality engineering than they are." The breakthrough came when Dr. Michelle Davis, working with Guardian technology at Luna Station, discovered how to create stable zones where the normal laws of physics remained constant, even in the presence of Void Harbingers. Her technique allowed Guardian forces to establish beachheads in contested space where conventional tactics could still function. "We can create bubbles of stable reality," she announced to the combined fleet. Inside these zones, matter behaves normally and our weapons work as designed. The trick is learning to expand these zones faster than the Harbingers can corrupt them. Captain Steve Murphy led the advance force that tested this new technology at the Battle of Proxima Centauri. His ship, the UES Defender, had become a mobile reality anchor, able to project zones of stable physics around itself and allied vessels. The battle was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Guardian ships phased in and out of normal space while maintaining reality bubbles that allowed alien allies to engage the enemy effectively. Void Harbinger scouts tried to unweave the quantum foundations of matter itself, only to find their efforts blocked by human reality engineers who reinforced the basic forces of nature through sheer will and ancient knowledge. "We can hurt them," Chief Engineer Laura Thompson reported as the Defender's reality projection systems held firm against Harbinger reality warping attacks. "They are not invincible if we can maintain stable physics in the combat zone. But victory at Proxima came at a cost. The effort required to maintain reality bubbles large enough for fleet actions was enormous, and Guardian crews found themselves exhausted after even brief engagements. Worse, sensor readings indicated that the main Harbinger fleet was still approaching, and it was orders of magnitude larger than the scout forces they had just defeated. Dr. Carter, now serving as the primary interface for the entire Guardian network, received disturbing intelligence from deep space monitoring stations. "The main force is not just larger," she reported to the emergency command structure. "It has learned from the defeats of its scouts and is adapting its approach." The Void Harbingers were changing their tactics, focusing their reality warping abilities on larger areas and coordinating their attacks to overwhelm Guardian defensive systems. Instead of trying to erase individual ships or soldiers, they were attempting to destabilize entire star systems at once. Commander Janet Ellis led the evacuation efforts for civilian populations in the projected path of the main Harbinger advance. Her ships could transport entire cities through dimensional portals, moving millions of beings to safety behind Guardian defensive lines. "We are running out of safe zones," she reported grimly. "They are advancing faster than we can establish new defensive positions, and each reality bubble we create requires more Guardian energy to maintain." Pilot Ace Sam Rodriguez commanded strike forces that used hit-and-run tactics against Harbinger advance units. His fighters could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, striking from angles that conventional physics said should be impossible. "The enemy is learning our tactics too quickly," Sam warned during a briefing of squadron leaders. "They are adapting to our reality manipulation faster than we can develop new techniques. We need something they have never seen before." The answer came from an unexpected source. The ancient memories that Dr. Carter could access through the Guardian network contained references to weapons and techniques that had been used only in the most desperate moments of the original war against the Void Harbingers. "There are protocols we have not activated yet," she explained to Captain Morrison and the other senior commanders. "Emergency measures that our ancestors hoped would never be necessary again. But activating them will change us in ways that we cannot undo." Jake looked at his transformed crew and realized that they had already changed beyond recognition from the humans who had first discovered the crystal chamber. The question was whether they were willing to change even more to save everything that existed. "What kind of changes are we talking about?" he asked. "The kind that will make us into something that can fight the Harbingers on equal terms," Lisa replied. "But we will no longer be entirely human afterward. We will become living guardians of reality itself, beings whose existence is tied to protecting the fundamental forces of the universe." Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery and watched the strange debris field through the main screen. The ship had been traveling for 3 months beyond the Andromeda Gateway, farther than any human vessel had gone before. His crew was tired but excited about what they might find in this forgotten corner of space. "Captain, we are getting some unusual readings from those structures ahead," said Dr. Lisa Carter from her science station. She was the best researcher they had, and her voice carried a note of wonder that Jake had learned to trust. "The metal composition is unlike anything in our databases." Jake moved closer to look at her screen. The debris field stretched for thousands of kilometers, filled with twisted metal and strange crystalline formations that caught the light from distant stars. Some of the larger pieces were the size of small moons, their surfaces covered in patterns that looked almost like writing. Danny, take us in closer but keep the shields up, Jake ordered. Danny Rodriguez was his chief engineer, a young man who could make the ship's systems sing like a symphony. The Discovery moved forward slowly, its sensors reaching out to touch the ancient wreckage. Amy Walsh at the communication station suddenly looked up with a puzzled expression. Sir, I'm picking up something strange. It is not exactly a signal, but there is some kind of energy pattern coming from those crystal formations. It feels familiar somehow. Jake raised an eyebrow. Amy was not one to use words like feels when describing technical readings. She was usually precise about everything related to communications and sensors. Familiar how? I cannot explain it, Captain. It is like hearing a song you know but cannot remember where you learned it. Amy shook her head and went back to her instruments, but Jake could see the confusion on her face. Dr. Carter had been studying the readings for several minutes when she suddenly stood up. Captain, I need to take a shuttle to one of those larger structures. The energy signatures are incredible, and I think there might be intact technology inside. Absolutely not, Jake said immediately. We have no idea what kind of radiation or hazards those things might contain. We study them from here first, but Lisa was already gathering her equipment. Sir, the readings are not showing any dangerous radiation. Whatever these crystals are made of, they seem to be completely stable. I think they have been waiting here for a very long time. Something in her voice made Jake pause. Lisa was always careful and methodical, never one to take unnecessary risks. But now she seemed drawn to those crystals like they were calling to her personally. Fine, but you take a full team and stay in constant contact, Jake finally agreed. Danny, prep Shuttle Bay 2. Amy, monitor all frequencies for any changes when they get close to those structures. An hour later, Dr. Carter and her team were floating through the debris field in their shuttle. Jake watched from the bridge as they approached the largest crystal formation. A massive purple structure that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. Discovery. This is incredible, Lisa's voice came through the speakers. The crystals are definitely artificial, but the technology is far beyond anything we have ever seen. I am reading power signatures that should be impossible for something this old. How old are we talking about? Jake asked. Preliminary scans suggest these structures have been here for at least 1 million years, possibly much longer. But Captain, they are not dead. There are active systems inside these crystals just waiting for something. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Waiting for what? I do not know yet, but I am going to find out. We are docking with the main structure now. On the main screen, Jake watched as the small shuttle attached itself to what looked like an airlock on the crystal's surface. The lock had clearly been built for humanoid beings, which raised questions that made his head spin. Captain? Amy called out suddenly. I am getting increased energy readings from all over the debris field. Whatever Dr. Carter is doing over there, it is waking things up. Jake grabbed his communicator. Lisa, get back to the shuttle right now. We are seeing activity all over the field. But there was only static in response. On the screen, the crystal structure Lisa had entered was beginning to glow brighter, and similar lights were appearing throughout the debris field. Danny, prepare for emergency retrieval, Jake ordered. Amy, try to raise them on all frequencies. Then the breakthrough came. Amy's board lit up with signals unlike anything they had ever encountered. But instead of alien languages or incomprehensible data, the signals carried something that made no sense at all. They carried human voices, speaking in ancient dialects that somehow felt familiar to everyone on the bridge. Captain, Amy whispered, her face pale. These signals are not random. They are memories, and they are human memories. But they are older than our entire civilization. At that moment, Dr. Carter's voice came through clearly. Jake, you need to see this. I am inside some kind of control room, and everything here responds to human touch. The technology knows me somehow, like it was built specifically for our species. That is impossible, Jake said. Humans have only been in space for a few centuries. That is what I thought too, but the evidence is right in front of me. There are star charts here showing human colonies that never existed, battles that were never fought, and technologies we have never developed. Jake, I think we are not the first humans to travel the stars. Before Jake could respond, the crystal formation suddenly erupted with light. The energy pulse spread outward from the structure, washing over the Discovery and continuing into deep space. Every human on board felt something change inside them, like a door opening in their minds that had been locked since birth. Danny's hands moved over his controls with new understanding, making adjustments to the ship's systems that he had never learned but somehow knew. Amy's equipment began receiving signals from across the galaxy, messages in languages she could suddenly understand. And Jake found himself looking at the star charts with fresh eyes, seeing patterns and connections that had been invisible before. "Captain," Lisa's voice came through with excitement and fear mixed together. The pulse was a signal sent to every human in the galaxy. "We have awakened something that has been sleeping for a very long time, and I think it was meant to wake up when humanity was ready." "Ready for what?" Jake asked, though part of him already knew the answer would change everything. "To remember who we really are and why we are really here." As the Discovery hung in space surrounded by awakening ancient technology, Jake realized that their simple exploration mission had just become something much larger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The energy pulse from the crystal had reached Earth 3 days after Dr. Carter touched the ancient controls. Dr. Kevin Brooks was working late in his office at the university when it happened. He felt a strange tingling sensation, followed by vivid images flashing through his mind. Ancient battles among the stars, humans wielding weapons that bent space and time, and a promise made long ago to protect something precious. Kevin had spent his life studying human history and mythology, but these images felt different. They were not stories or legends, but actual memories from a time that should not exist. He rushed to his computer and began comparing the visions with ancient texts from every human culture he could access. What he found made his hands shake. Every major mythology on Earth contained references to the same events he had seen in his vision. The Greek Titans, the Norse Ragnarok, the Hindu cycles of creation and destruction, all told variations of the same story about humans fighting cosmic horrors to protect the galaxy. Meanwhile, aboard the Discovery, Dr. Carter and her team were experiencing changes that should have been impossible. Lisa found that she could understand the crystal technology without reading manuals or studying schematics. The alien systems responded to her thoughts as naturally as her own limbs responded to her will. Danny Rodriguez discovered that he could feel the ship's engines like they were part of his own body. When a minor power fluctuation occurred in the reactor core, he knew about it before the sensors registered the problem. He could guide the energy flows through the ship's systems with an intuition that amazed even himself. Amy Walsh was perhaps the most affected. The communications array had become an extension of her mind, allowing her to hear signals from across the galaxy that normal equipment could never detect. She was picking up scattered transmissions from other human ships and colonies, all reporting similar awakening experiences. Captain Jake Morrison tried to maintain order as his crew transformed before his eyes. But he was changing too. Battle strategies and tactical knowledge that he had never learned filled his mind. He found himself understanding starship combat techniques that would not be developed for decades, as if he had fought in wars that happened long before he was born. The changes were not limited to the Discovery's crew. Reports flooded in from human colonies throughout local space. People were developing enhanced reflexes, technological intuition, and an unexplained understanding of advanced physics. Children were drawing pictures of star systems they had never seen, and elderly people were speaking in languages that linguists could not identify. On the Zentari homeworld, Ambassador Helen Price received urgent reports from her intelligence networks. The proud Zentari Empire had ruled a significant portion of the galaxy for thousands of years, and they were not comfortable with the changes they were observing in human space. "The humans are different," reported Commander Greg Turner, a liaison officer who had worked with human diplomats for several years. Greg was one of the few humans in direct contact with major alien governments, and his reports carried significant weight. "The energy signatures coming from their territory match ancient technologies that we thought were lost forever." Helen studied the data with growing concern. The Zentari had built their empire on the assumption that they were among the most advanced species in the galaxy. The idea that humans, who had seemed so primitive just months before, might possess knowledge that predated Zentari civilization was deeply troubling. The Vex Collective was responding differently to the human changes. Their scientific minds were fascinated by the phenomenon, and they dispatched research fleets to study the energy patterns emanating from human space. Dr. Ryan Clark, a human xenoarchaeologist working with the Vex, found himself at the center of intense scientific interest. "The quantum signatures are unlike anything we have recorded," explained his Vex colleague during a joint research session. Your species appears to be accessing information stored at the subatomic level of your genetic structure. This suggests that humans were designed rather than evolved. Ryan found the implications staggering. If humans were artificially created, then someone or something had seeded Earth with a species that carried dormant knowledge of advanced galactic technologies. The question was why, and what had triggered the awakening now? Dr. Michelle Davis, a quantum physicist working on Luna Station, was experiencing her own revelations. The mathematical equations that had puzzled scientists for decades were suddenly clear to her. She could see how faster-than-light travel worked, how to manipulate gravitational fields, and how to draw energy directly from stellar cores. "It is like someone left us an instruction manual written in our own DNA," she explained to her research team. But the manual was locked until we were ready to read it. Back aboard the Discovery, Dr. Carter had managed to activate more of the crystal technology. The ancient control room was revealing its secrets one by one, and each discovery raised more questions than it answered. "Jake, you need to see this," Lisa called through the communicator. She had found what appeared to be a galactic map, but it showed human colonies and installations throughout the galaxy that had never existed in recorded history. According to this data, humans had a vast interstellar civilization millions of years ago. "That is impossible," Jake replied, but even as he said it, he knew it was true. The memories that had awakened in his mind showed him glimpses of that ancient time, when humans had been guardians and protectors of countless worlds. "There is more," Lisa continued. "The map shows installation sites just like this one scattered throughout the galaxy. If the pulse reached all of them, then we are not the only ones awakening to this knowledge." She was right. Across human space, archaeological teams were discovering similar crystal formations on worlds that had been surveyed many times before. The crystals had always been there, but somehow humans had never noticed them until now. Each site that activated sent its own pulse into deep space, creating a network of signals that was growing stronger by the day. But the signals were not only reaching other human installations. Something else was listening in the dark spaces between galaxies, something that had been waiting for exactly this moment. Dr. Kevin Brooks, working with newly awakened memories and ancient texts, made a discovery that chilled him to the bone. The mythologies did not only speak of humans as protectors and guardians, they also warned of great enemies that had been defeated but not destroyed, entities that waited in the void for the guardians to reveal themselves once again. "We were not just given this knowledge to explore the galaxy," he reported to the emergency council that had formed to coordinate humanity's response to the awakening. "We were given it to fight something that our ancestors faced before and that may be coming back." As if to confirm his fears, the deep space monitoring stations began detecting anomalous readings from the galactic edge. Objects were moving in the dark spaces beyond the spiral arms, massive forms that absorbed light and energy rather than reflecting it. Captain Morrison received the alert while studying the crystal chamber data with Dr. Carter. The notification was simple but terrifying. Long-range sensors had detected movement in previously empty space, and whatever was moving was heading toward the galaxy at a significant fraction of light speed. "How long do we have?" Jake asked the sensor technician. "At current speed, approximately 6 months before the objects reach the outer rim of the galaxy, sir." Jake looked at Lisa, who had gone pale. The ancient memories stirring in both their minds carried a clear message. The enemy that humanity had been created to fight was returning, and the awakening of human guardian capabilities had been the signal it was waiting for. The galaxy was about to discover that it had never been alone, and that the young species called humanity carried within them the power to either save or doom every living thing among the stars.